Take me home, I wanna know if you're down, ready to go. Wanna fly away with you, float away, fly away.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Roadshow. Today I'm joined... Oh, actually, let's set the scene. Today it's Saturday, right? 11 o'clock, almost, about that. You just came from McDonald's. You rocked up and you thought McDonald's was going to get your order right. First, I ordered a latte, apparently, an almond milk latte was what I ordered. Ladies and gentlemen, the man with the wrong Macca's bag, Sam Macintyre.
That's going to be my legacy. That's great. 50 years from now, 100 years from now, that's going to be me.
I reckon move that way a little bit, just 'cause people can't see your face.
Which, this way?
Yeah.
But you told me to move
Don't
into
worry
the...
about it.
Okay,
Don't worry
is that
about it.
better?
That's fine. It's all
Is
good.
that-
I can adjust the levels.
Oh, there we go. I moved this in a little bit. How's that?
Hey, yeah, it's fucking nice.
Mate, see that?
man.
I should be a sound guy.
You are a sound guy. You could project audible content with your face.
I just thought you meant like I'm reliable, like I'm a sound guy.
Oh,
But
no.
that's cool.
No, that's not it.
No. More reliable
Mate,
than
like,
Macca's.
yeah, I trust your algorithms more.
I do too.
So what's been happening, dude?
Not much, man. On the subject of algorithms, been working on some pretty exciting projects at the moment.
What do you got in the bag?
Super exciting. So keeping it relatively simple, it's a crypto trading bot. So essentially, there's a concept in financial markets known as like a market maker model. And so
What is that?
Well, what you do is so you add liquidity to a book. So like, you know, if you want to go buy, say, shoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So say you want to go buy shoes and you want to buy shoes today. And the only way that you're going to get those shoes is if somebody's selling them. Like somebody has already got them listed somewhere, right? And so very much the same if you want to buy stocks or buy, you know, crypto or buy whatever your asset is today, somebody has to have them listed, right? And that's called the order book, right? And that's where people say, I'm willing to sell this for this, or I'm willing to buy this for this. Now, brokerages and exchanges like people doing that, because if nobody did that, nobody would trade. And if nobody trades, brokerages don't make any money, right? So with these kind of orders, if you do enough volume, you can get 0% commissions on your orders. And so it means that you can build algorithmic trading models that work in very, very fast frequency with a very small profit. And obviously as your profit margin decreases, you tend to decrease your risk a little bit. You don't have these massive wide open positions. So the concept behind it is you do these order types, which are limit orders, post only orders. You do these market maker styled orders, add liquidity into the book, and then as these positions get filled, you're essentially like placing like the like the buy order here and then the sell order, and you make like a tiny fraction. But if you do that over and over and over again, quite a high frequency, you can be quite profitable.
Right.
So, quantitative finance has always been like a massive passion of mine. I geek out on this stuff. So it's really exciting to finally get around to kind of developing and building something for it. So that's the...
Well, that was always what we kind of talked about when we were in real estate together is, right? You wanted to go down the broker, like kind of, because that was more finance.
Yeah.
Right? So since then, what has been your like driving factor into wanting to create this algorithm? Was it an idea that you like conjugated yourself, or was it like a team, or?
Yep. So the idea for a market maker algorithm wasn't mine originally. It's quite a commonly used form of method, but the design, if you will, and the rules for the current algorithm come from a former colleague, a friend of mine named Patrick.
Shout out Patrick.
Shout out Patrick. The man is a unbridled genius in the way of all things.
I like that word.
Finance. He's a very, very intelligent fellow. So he, he's kind of the strategist, if you will, behind a lot of the design work for stuff that we work on, and I'm more the programmer, the I don't know, the code monkey, whatever you want to call it.
Is that what you call it? Dance monkey dance?
Yeah, I wish I had Tones and I's voice.
Hey, Ryan.
She is. You actually could win an impression contest with that. That was. I felt like she was here in the room with us.
She is. Come out, Tones and I.
Here we go.
Yeah. So like that's kind of. So you met him, right? Did you guys work together?
Yeah.
And then what were you guys doing while you were working together?
So we were working in sales, working for a company called Australian Stock Report, doing sales of like brokerage services, like stock recommendation services, kind of referring guys over to the BDMs who would deal with like the managed fund. So essentially just a sales role, right?
Yeah.
Just dealing with, you're not directly selling financial products. I have to make, this distinction because there's legalities involved. You're, selling support services for the purchase of financial products.
Right. Okay. So a lot like what we did in the beginning.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Bang on the money. So like a lot with like what we did when we were in real estate, right?
Yes.
Which is where like you sign somebody on board. We did a software. My personal favorite that I did when I was there was a software platform. And I geek out on this stuff.
I know you do.
Ooh, love me some computer stuff. But there was there was a platform they had that was used for software analytic portfolio analytics. And so one of the
For
things,
future analytics or what the results have been to date.
Oh, well, both, right? So like in financial markets,
Projection is a tedious thing. Yeah.
right. Well, prediction's always based on past performance, and past performance can never guarantee future performance.
So stay present, fellas.
Stay present, guys. That's it's the joke in finance. It's always the disclaimer. Please be advised, past performance is not indicative of future performance. But yeah. So that's how I met him. And then I'll be honest. When I was in that job, I was more interested in like the research side than I was actually doing my job.
So you were taking as much information as you could with you?
Yeah. So I had a bit of an understanding with my boss at the time, which was in sales, if you hit target, you can't really be touched. So it's like if you hit target and you're on the top of the leaderboard, nobody can criticize you and say you have to work harder, right? So I would try to hit target early, and then I would I'd still go to the office, still do my job, and still make sales, but I'd also spend a lot more time now researching. So I'd sit there, and I'd be researching whatever, like market maker models, or like how equities work, or what's momentum, right? What's factor investing? What's like momentum versus value investing? Like what's the average performance of a managed fund? Which, mind you, it's pretty shocking. But yeah. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And Patrick, who then began working there, he was also very technically minded, and so we used to have a lot of conversations. We'd play a lot of games where I'd try to prove him wrong.
That's good.
Still couldn't. Like a very smart man.
Shit, and you proved me wrong. So fucking gee, he must be levels above.
I'd prove you wrong. Yeah.
Everything. The reasons as to why it should be like supported for lower ego through my life. Yeah.
Well,
try and work your own shit out, Jacob. Stop looking to external shit.
So it's really funny that you mentioned that. So I know I had a discussion with you, obviously recently, which is my focus over the last kind of year has really changed a lot more to kind of that introspective and that development of character. And it's quite funny, exactly as you say, how we look at things to validate us externally.
Continue.
All right. So I've gone through different phases in my life and different things of trying to work out, who am I, what am I, how do I, what is my value that I add? Am I a valuable person? in the eyes of others, or whatever, usual kind of self-esteem questions. And so I reached an interesting point. Was this probably about a year ago? And that was, I kind of, a lot of people, they look at value as like materialistic, right? They look at value as, I have achieved X, I own X, my body looks like X, I have X dollars in the bank account, whatever, these things that you can try to measure as a litmus test to give yourself value. And one of the things that I kind of realized is that the only reason why anybody uses that as a litmus test is because people value those things. And the only reason why people value those things is because they think that those things will add value to their lives. Right? And you see it all the time, right? Like you see it with someone who's becoming successful and all of a sudden they develop an entourage that isn't really their friends. Yes. You see people who have, who as they begin to make a lot of money, or people come back out of the woodworks, if you will.
It's almost like that old tribalism thing with like, even in like Egyptian time, where the more people you had underneath you, it was easier to lift the throne that you were sitting on. Right? It's just to validate your shit, right? Nobody really cared who the king was. They cared about the position. So it's more people underneath you, easier to lift the throne of the king.
Yeah, but so not so much in like, so yes, that's correct. It is. And that's how it works well for you if you're that individual. But the thing that I noted was like, as you say, nobody cares who the king is, right? They only care that he's the king. And it was that what's the motivation behind the person lifting the throne?
To get closer to that position.
Right. Why?
Yeah, validation.
Right, validate, or because they think they're going to get something out of it.
Recognition, whatever the fuck it is.
Protection, resource, assets, So, I was really interested in this dynamic because then, I kind of reached this point where I worked out, okay, maybe value is derived based on the value you add to other people's lives. Let's skip the materialistic point of view for a second and let's look at the other ways that, you can add value to other people's lives. Kindness, generosity, working in sales, one of the most powerful things we learned was a genuine compliment, right?
Not a lot of people give them.
Right? And it's like, how does that make you feel when you received a genuine compliment?
Recognized, yeah.
Yeah, recognized, right?
Yeah.
It makes you feel good.
Of course. Recognition in itself, unless it's deemed in a negative sense, is mostly positive.
Can you repeat that?
Recognition in itself is mostly positive unless it's already deemed a negative sense. Like if they were like sentencing someone, they recognize, like say if you got those like lineup of like 5 people in front of you, which one did the crime? I recognize that it's that guy. Other than that, like there's not a lot of negative recognition in the world in the way of like lifting up. Like it's always kind of on a good facet.
Okay. I'm going to play a little bit devil's advocate here.
Go, yes. Fucking kill my ideas.
So what do we consider that recognition is always a good thing? Because what is recognition, right? Recognition is assigning something to an individual. I recognize that X did X. So realistically, we could argue that recognition is merely the discovery of truth, or, we were assigning the truth to the individual.
Correct.
So if somebody's recognized for doing something bad, I'm sure it's probably bad for them, they got caught, but the recognition that that's taken place and the recognition that they've now received from that means that as a society, or the individuals that are aware of this are closer to the truth. I think there's, you kind of take away smoke and mirrors. So yeah, just a counter thought that maybe recognition is always good.
Well, isn't truth always good?
Yeah. So this is a big point of agreement of mine as well. Okay. Massive point of agreement. One thing. So as we talk about this looking for value kind of thing, one of the side kind of philosophies that I've been exploring is stoic philosophy, and what it means to live a good life, right? You talk about the 4 stoic virtues of like wisdom, temperance, courage, and justice, right? So truth arguably would fall under justice. And so I think that irrespective of what the truth is, I think that for most of us, truth is aligned with our character. Like most people, for the most part, people aren't compulsive liars, or at least they don't want to be, right? Like compulsive lying comes from insecurity, which is a whole different thing. But so, you know, most of us want to be, or at least believe we are truthful, and for the most part are truthful. And so it's like, if that's the case, then, you know, you kind of have to be right, because you need to do things that align with your character, right? So I think, you know, when we start looking at truth as being a good, right? And we look at truth, because truth can a lot of different meanings, but I think when we talk about the action of truth, right? We talk about the I'm going to do things that are truth. When we look at it on a very individual level, I don't think that there can be any negative association with that. Now, bad things can happen because you tell the truth. That's fine. But, you know, it's like, well, if you stay true to your character, because that's really all you can do, right? You can't influence what's going to happen. Right? It's like that. Remember the story of the Chinese farmer?
Yeah, with the horse and yeah.
Mm-hmm. So,
do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, I'll
people that
do
don't know it.
The quick version. So there's a Chinese farmer, and one day, you know, he's in the fields and his horse runs away, and all the other farmers come around and they go, "Oh, that's so bad. We're sorry to hear that. You know, that's too bad." And the farmer goes, "Well, maybe." And then the next day, the horse returns, and with it is a pack of wild horses that have been brought along back with it. They were following it. And so the farmer takes in all these horses, and the other farmers come around and they go, that's such good luck. Like, that's great. And the farmer goes, well, maybe. And so the next day, the farmer's son is breaking in one of the horses, and he falls from the horse and breaks his leg. And, you know, the son's hurt, and all the other, you know, villagers and farmers come around and they go, oh, that's so unfortunate, it's so bad. And the farmer goes, well, maybe. And the day after that, the conscript officer for the military comes around and enlists all of the young boys in the village to join the army and go fight in the war. And the farmer's son, being injured, can't go, and so he gets to stay home. And the villagers come over and go, that's so lucky. And the farmer goes, maybe. And, you know, the idea is we don't know what the repercussions of our actions are going to be. We don't know if we do X, what Y is going to be. And we have no control over it. You have no control how much money is in your bank account. You can do your best and you can try your hardest, but, you know, you could fall victim to, you know, your bank account getting hacked, to some form of litigation, to, you know, unexpected medical expenses. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there's things that we don't know what the flow and effect of our actions are, right? And so all we can do is control the action, right? So this comes back to that truth, which is if you're doing things that are against your character and against what you believe because you're attempting to get an end result, you're attempting to predict an end result, which once again, mind you never know what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. Most of the time I find that you're not going to be happy with that. You know, one, you might not even get what you want, but two, you're essentially doing things that are against who you are as a person for some form of undetermined future gain.
It's self-injustice, right?
Yeah, 100%. That's a perfect word for it. I like that. It is a self-injustice. You are being unfair to yourself. You're being unjust to yourself. You know, and there was that Joan Didion quote we were, you know, talking about the other day, which I won't repeat the whole thing. It's quite long, but the essential crux of it was like, you know, if you lie, if you steal, if you cheat, if you do these things that are not in line with your character, that you know you are wrong, that, you know, one day you will wake up, or you will lay in bed, beyond the reach of the warm blanket and whatever drugs and alcohol you use to numb your emotions, and you'll have to sit in that emotion. And we experience that in little small doses, right? It's like you lie and you get what you want, but you feel horrible. Mm-hmm. And once again, we were talking about it the other day, which is I don't think no matter there's been situations where I've told the truth and I have been burnt. But you never regret that. Maybe at the time you wonder, oh, should I have? But like a year later, you're like, oh, I'm so happy. Like I'm happy that I told the truth. I'm happy that I stayed true to me and I cemented that in my character.
Yeah. As long as the truth is almost a disposition, or it's action. Not. Let me say that again. As long as the truth is a position of an action, if you have caused that situation, if the action was truthful to your character as well, right? Because a lot of times we will do something that's almost a lie to our character, like we'll like fucking cheat, lie, whatever the fuck it is. Not so much lying. I'm not talking about vocal things, but like just something that's against your character or against the truths or like promises that you've made to the people that you're around.
Yep.
And then coming forward and saying a truth after the fact, that doesn't make it. Yeah, you came out at that point in time. It's as a resolution of the cheating, whatever the fuck it is. You can cheat yourself, by the way, too. And you can come forward and say, yes, I fucked up. This is what it is. And then move on from there. And then you feel good. Mm-hmm. But in that time period between what happened and the truthful nature that you have come to fruition on, that kind of, it's almost like a spiral downwards, right? Mm-hmm. And we kind of find ourselves pushing, like it's that creating conflict for yourself, right? A lot of people don't have enough shit that they're doing in their lives. They don't have enough things that they're pushing forward on, progressing on, innovating on, even in their self. Like they're not mitigating ego. They're not trying to live in a eudaimonic state.
Eudaimonic, yeah.
And that really can take a toll on somebody until they're truthful with themselves and say, yes, I've got to put down the bottle. I've got to put down the bong. I've got to, whatever the fuck it is, right? I'm not saying those things are bad. I'm just saying like in contextual form, we look at ourselves every single day and say, what's good for us? What's bad for us? And a lot of the times we'll just create like a negative output emotion on that specific thing rather than taking a full-fledged like almost analysis of ourselves and being like, yes, this is good for me, this is bad for me. We would literally create a scenario where we're like, this is bad, but it's like it's taking the edge off or whatever the fuck it is, right? And then you kind of get in that cycle and it's like, oh, the thing that's giving you the pain is also taking the pain away for a brief moment in time. I talked to Marksman Lloyd yesterday, and he got into a situation where he was almost anemic, like very, very like he's 6 foot tall and he was 63 kilos. He was a long distance runner, drinking and taking codeine every single day, has a heart attack. Well, arrhythmia, like a cardiac arrest situation. And then he turns his life around. But with that, he found he was searching once again for comfort in things. So he like started seeing someone that he didn't really want to be with and all that kind of stuff. And so that was a really good story for me to hear because it kind of puts into perspective a lot of the things that we constantly choose for our lives. And if we're constantly choosing the things that are going to make us better as people and make us not so much better as people, but more true to our character, as you were saying before, there's a lot that can be almost take that Chinese fable, you know, the horse and all that kind of stuff, with a perspective of yes, this is negative, yes, this is positive in the way of what the villagers were saying. It's very set in the path, and you can predict where they're going to go, right? Because it's almost the cycle once again of just like mindset, and having that maybe mindset really takes you back from the I guess the pain of it, because you haven't like set like this is how I'm going to feel about this. Yeah.
So that's a really, really interesting kind of point. That's actually an all too common story as well. So what we look at there is essentially avoidant behavior, right? And I very much, I had issues with this. As you know, when we used to work in real estate, I had a penchant for drinking like a fish. for lack of better words.
You almost got gills.
Yeah. Yeah, tell me about it.
Made out of cork from a wine bottle.
Mate. So, I've had my fair share of avoidant behavior in my life.
Shout out Pepper Jack, by the way.
Shout out Pepper Jack. You solely kept them in business.
Yeah.
So avoidant behaviors are really... This is where I feel like, a lot of people say you should teach finance in school. Sure. I think you should teach philosophy and psychology in school, and here is why. Do you know how many people, avoidant behavior is so ridiculously common? Okay, you watch TV. A lot of the times, the reason why you come home, or maybe you're exhausted and you like to unwind, that's cool. But a lot of the time, it's because you're anxious, you don't want to do something, or you're anxious about doing something productive, right? It's that fear of failure, like, oh, I have to go do this stuff, but I'm anxious of it, I'm afraid of it, so I'm going to avoid it, I'm going to go watch TV. It's procrastination is mostly avoidant behavior. We have substance abuse issues most of the time are from avoidant behavior. A lot of this comes from, we have a negative emotion, and rather than wanting to sit with and experience the emotion, rather than sitting with and experiencing the emotion, we attempt to detract from it in the short term, or distract rather. And so what happens is we have anxiety, right? So and it could be anything. It could have been you said something to somebody at work. You're now worried about, oh, should I have said that? Are they going to think badly of me? What should I have said instead? Your mind starts to run in this little hamster wheel, and you go, oh, it's all too hard. I just need a drink. And so you go have a beer at the pub or whatever it is. And that forms, as you said, a cycle. And you all of a sudden begin to develop this neural pathway, right, of when I am anxious or when I feel this emotion, I'm going to go do X. And then that presents itself as cravings, right? So now, after doing this enough times, you begin to crave alcohol when you are stressed or anxious.
It's association, right?
Bingo. And there's a lot of stuff out there that causes TV, computer games. I had a video game addiction when I was younger. Was a kid. Nerd. Oh, massive, mate. I am a self-professed geek nerd, whatever you want to call it. But one of the other big ones that I see, and I talk to people that have problems with this as well, and I've had my fair share of issues with it, is pornographic material has a very detrimental effect on your mental state. Let's put it that way. There's been a lot of studies, especially more recently, a lot of studies done in this field, and how the dopamine response from the viewing of pornographic material very closely resembles the dopamine response of cocaine. There we go. And here's the problem:
they go hand in hand, by the way.
Yeah. Well,
dick in hand.
I'm sure I've probably tried that at some point in my life. But no, so like we look at something like that, and it's like, okay, here's the problem though. It's publicly available. It's completely it's acceptable. It's considered very acceptable and completely normalized, and it's free and easily accessible. And it's easily accessible.
Porn, not cocaine.
Yeah. And it's easily accessible to people at a young age.
Right.
And this is where, if you're 10 years old or 15 years old and you discover pornographic material, which you probably will, you do not develop the proper coping mechanisms to deal with things, right? And so all of a sudden, you can't. As an adult, you've developed this reliance, and this is where it's this is where I think it's so bad, is because, like, okay, as an adult, you develop that addiction, you develop that craving, you develop that reliance, but hopefully at some point in your youth, you developed a healthy coping mechanism. If you didn't come across alcohol at a young age or whatever have you. But as a child, like, I'm scared, man. I'm scared for what's going to happen to the younger generation when they grow up and they can't. They don't have these these healthy mechanisms for dealing with things.
Well, it's what I understand what you're saying, but it all comes down to the individual process of the parent. Now, what we're seeing all too often these days is parents with copious amounts of addictions, whether it be social media, pornography, bad diet because of convenience, because it's easier just to go through a drive-through on the way home than having to cook because I've got all this other work to do, housework, And those mechanisms, I guess, we've had social media now for 13 years, 14 years, something like that. I think it was 2008. Let me Google it. And what's happening? Like we haven't seen the repercussions of a society that's brought up by parents that have avid addictions. Like we've seen how kids grow up around, parents that have a drug addiction, or if you ever see a baby that's like comes out of you seen those videos of the baby that comes out of the womb shaking because the mother never stopped smoking meth?
I have not.
While pregnant.
Jesus.
They're terrible fucking videos. But that's a choice of the mother, right? That was a choice as a human to continue that, and then that lives on in the offspring, right? These choices, it's monkey see, monkey do kind of thing, right? Yeah. Like if they see us constantly on our phones, they'll be like, they're giving a lot of time to that, whether they're consciously saying this to themselves, it probably won't be. It's more of a monkey see, monkey do thing. But they're pretty much going, well, there's a lot of time given to watching these videos. There must be value in that. And then when, a kid's crying these days, you kind of give them an iPad to play a game or turn the television on. It's very much the Cable Guy scenario, right? Remember the Jim Carrey movie, The Cable Guy? Have you ever seen that?
Seen it.
Oh, man, that's a watch because, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, he was fixated on giving everybody the best cable, right? Like giving them the best television experience ever. At the end of the movie, his goal after the whole storyline and all that kind of stuff is to destroy television. So he goes and tries to destroy a satellite. He's trying to kill the babysitter. And it was like, oh shit. Because I only watched this like 10 years ago or something. And we did have social media at that point, MySpace, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, obviously, I think it's a little bit further.
MSN Messenger.
Oh, dude. And when I first saw that, I was like, I got shivers because I was like, yeah, that is what that is, right? Because I had friends that had like 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds when I was 20 years old, right? And you kind of saw it. You kind of saw the babysitter of the screen, the screen being the babysitter, and
it's cheap, it's easy.
And it doesn't require your attention. It just requires theirs, right? But we have as much as, look, I've done this social experiment over the last couple months, and that's with the Instagram thing, what gets views, right?
Yep.
What gets the most views is not the dark, it's not the long. So like an interview with dark lighting and really thought out ideas isn't going to get a huge amount of traction, but little sound bites, little funny things that are bright, that really capture the eyes, those are the things that really, really take off. I'm getting 3 million, 2 million, 1 million views. Like, it's fucking stupid, right? Like, it literally is mind-numbing. If you like just scrolling through and then it's over. And then the next one. Right? Like, and maybe it makes you spit your coffee out on one. Maybe there's a really good message on the next one that's maybe 30 seconds long instead of 10 seconds long. And you're just not going to give it the same amount of value. Why? Because you're searching from the dopamine hit from the prior thing.
Bingo. So that was exactly what I was going to say, is what does that resemble, right? It resembles tolerance to addictive substances.
Yes.
Once upon a time, if you go back 20 years, a couple of guys sitting in a room talking for an hour would have been the most fascinating thing, which, some people still watch, longer term content, long form content. But, a lot of people, it's that short dopamine hit because they need it. And as soon as it's gone, it's next scroll.
Yeah, but I don't think that wasn't curated by government. That came with the intent to grab more attention for more views from companies. That wasn't a governmental thing. That wasn't a like, let's try and like, you know, make it's not like the elite kind of thought.
Yeah.
Right? But it comes from a company. So like take Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or something like that. TikTok was the big changeover. I think like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, where we all went, why are these kids watching these fucking videos? As soon as you open the app, a video comes up. They learn how to grab attention straight away and keep the attention there.
So this is really interesting, this right here, because I don't think that... So, okay, let's look at the polarization as a result, polarization of political ideology as a result of social media, right? Which is people, confirmation bias, people just keep getting fed, information that supports their position. And I don't think that was intentional. So how machine learning and AI works is you have I'll keep it really broad and conceptual. You have some form of a model, and, it could be, neural nets are the really popular stuff. That's the AI, right? The deep learning. Woohoo, super sexy. So how it works is you have a series of nodes that it passes through with these little maths equations in them, and it spits out some value, and then that goes into another node, and at the very end it goes, did this match with our prediction, if you're predicting something, or did this generate what we wanted, right? And so then it goes backwards, changes the way that it works a little bit, and then does it again. It changes the way it works a little bit, changes it. So you have your reward metrics, right? And so if your reward metrics are what is time spent viewing, so you track the time spent viewing per video and you keep feeding that in through your recommender system, right? It's recommendation systems. Then what's going to happen is you're going to find that content's going to get tailored. And it's going to get tailored very quickly. And then what happens is that becomes a profile, right? And so one of the things recommender systems do is they work out who you are, and then they're going to just start feeding you recommendations from people that they think are similar to you. And then they're going to refine that over time, right? And this is all automated. Like most of it's got there's not somebody that sits at a computer and goes, this is this. It's a machine that just runs, right? It's deployed, runs on like probably 1 million GPUs somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But what happens is you're going to find that, because it's true, you do watch stuff that agrees with your beliefs more.
Yeah.
When you go, that guy, yeah, he makes sense. He's great.
It's
and
assertive to the narrative that you believe.
Yeah, 100%. And that's just how we are as humans, right? It's psychologically how we are, right? If it's like, okay, imagine you have somebody who's crazy talking about aliens coming from space and picking out brains of cows. I don't know, whatever, right? Something that's just so left field. You're going to be very dismissive of that.
Flat earthers.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Flat earthers. There we go, right? That's a great example. You're just going to be like, yeah, whatever, man. But a flat earther talking to that guy's going to be like, tell me more.
Yeah.
Especially if you feel like your ideology isn't fairly represented, right? And
it's so easy to fall into those channels as well. Because it just there has to there can be one thing that you agree with, and you're like, if I agree with that, do I agree with this? And then you start questioning it yourself. So
yeah, you got to be. This is where you got to be really careful here. So I've moved along the political spectrum for a bit. I thought I was quite progressive, and then, I saw some really woke stuff, and I was like, okay, that's too woke for me. So then I kind of leaned a little bit towards the right, and then they went crazy with some of their stuff, and I was just like, all right, now I've just decided that I'm not even gonna. I don't identify on the political spectrum, which is just, I believe what I believe as an individual, and it's part of it's with the right, part of it's with the left, part of it's in the middle. But the thing I really try to avoid is politically charged content, because you end up in because the algorithm, you end up in a what's the term? Is it sounding board, sound room?
Well, no, it's an echo chamber.
Echo chamber, that's the word, yes. Yeah. You end up in an echo chamber of whatever ideology the algorithm floated you into. Yeah. And you can see it too. You see it in friends, you see it in people that they go, hey, did you know, whatever, Roe versus Wade, or, or pick something that's, or vaccinations are bad, or, whatever's something that would be part of an ideology. And then you see them 2 months later and they're just full on, right? And it's more than likely because they ended up in an echo chamber as a result of being tailored content that was getting them most likely, like that they would most likely watch, right? Because of these algorithms. But what do you do, right? Like if Facebook's goal is to be profitable and get you to watch advertisements, and the way that they do that is by getting you to watch content, and you're more likely to watch content that you agree with. How do you stop that? Like, what's the solution? Because it's getting worse too.
Well, going back to what you said in the beginning, it is basically just an algorithm of data nodes that run through a mathematical equation.
Yeah.
Do you know the guy that created the like button for Facebook? He came out and said, "I wish I never did that."
I've heard this, yeah.
And that when I heard that, man, it really struck a nerve with me, because he didn't know, right? He didn't know what that was going to be. But the amount of ego, the amount of what's the next innovation off that one button, that like button. Whew. Remember in the beginning, do you remember getting your first like?
I remember the first photo I ever posted on Facebook, but I don't remember my first like. I don't post a lot of. Like,
did it have
Facebook
the like button on there
content.
when you posted your first photo? I wonder when that came in.
I don't know. I got the memory of a goldfish. It probably did. I was a late adopter of that technology. Let's put it that way.
Oh right, okay.
I remember when the iPhone came out. I was so I went to a private school, but it was like not an expensive private school. It was like it was a good private school, but I was also maybe not the richest kid. So I remember all the kids had like their iPhones and their Facebooks, and I was playing Snake on my little Nokia brick.
It was in 2009.
2009.
Yeah, the first version of the like button, then called the awesome button, was developed in 2007. Facebook Chief Executive Officer Mark Zuckerberg was concerned about public nature of the feature and chose not to launch until 2009. So he even had a point of concern in 2007. But with the development of Facebook, obviously, I think maybe somebody that was put into a sector and they were like, yeah, let's try it out. Because you remember they tried that. That's one thing that Facebook was very good at, is they launched it as a beta version first to see how it would take. And then instead of like retracting beta and then launching, they would just like, yeah, okay, let everyone have that now.
Just deploy it.
Yeah. And I find like before the Facebook took over Instagram, because Facebook owned Instagram, Instagram was just like, yeah, let's do this. They wouldn't beta it. They just kind of did it, right? And it was it was nice. You know, it wasn't like let's test the waters to see if we get more like attention. Because like let's take the video aspect of it, right? Like the attention grabbing, reels and all that kind of stuff. You think you're putting a reel out there so the attention's on you, but you put a reel out there on their platform. The other people are watching your content on on Facebook's platform or Instagram or TikTok. So regardless or not, if you think they're watching your content, that content isn't yours anymore. It's Facebook. It was published to Facebook. It was published to Instagram.
Pretty sure they get intellectual property rights.
Yes, yes. But who's getting the view? Like, who's getting the time? You're not getting the time, right? The time is spent on the app. The app then advertises.
I mean, if you promote in your content, then a little bit yeah. But
how many people are doing
Facebook's
that?
milking it. Come on.
Oh,
Hey, in the gold rush, who made the most money? The ones selling the shovels, right?
yeah.
That's all Facebook's doing. They're selling the shovels. You're there digging for gold. And
That's a good way of looking at it, actually.
And they're not even selling you the shovels. You're hiring that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's a shovel that at the end of the day, they take it back off you.
That's it. Yoink.
Yeah.
Permanently. And they get all the gold you dig up too, from the sounds of things.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I've had in total, probably like 7 million views now on my platform. I haven't got a fucking cent. So anybody who thinks that I'm making money off that shit, go fuck yourself.
Hey, thanks for keeping them on the algo for us, buddy, there. And get that advertising revenue.
That's it, though. Like, every time you laugh at one of my videos or see my face or recognize that, oh, there's Jacob again, or whatever the fuck it is, after that is normally a sponsored ad that
teeth whitening strips.
or fucking something.
Or a
but
game.
it's enough to keep you on the like. So I talked about
that
this.
slap of dopamine.
Yeah, fucking. And it's good too. I fucking love that dopamine.
Love it.
So what's going back to your journey into? We fucking got on a tangent there.
Yeah, we do that all the time.
Yeah. Going back into your journey of like how you got with Patrick and like where you're going with this algorithm. What's the intent for the future? Is it to give people the best avenue for success in the crypto industry, or is it to monetize your own algorithm? Or like obviously to be a fucking percentage on everything, let's be honest, but like you've always had the mindset of like helping people. That's like one thing that like, and you're in a genuine nature from that too, where I used to help people to monetize it, right? Especially in real estate. I've realized that that's not the right thing to do for like a monetary gains, like as a sole, I guess moral, right? That was my sole moral. It wasn't like, it was more about making the money than helping the people. And I think that's why I had to like get the fuck out of there, right? But you kind of always have had that almost like the symptom of you like chasing your stuff is the reason as to why you help the people.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. I have a lot of gripes with the financial services industry. A lot. Here's a fun one. Did you know that there is not a single country in the world in which there are more managed funds that outperform the index than that lose to it? So like I think Mexico does the best, and only 64% of managed funds, I think, in Mexico. You'd have to look it up, SPIVA, right?
It's them and Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi, that's it. But like, so 64% of managed funds in Mexico underperform like Mexico's benchmark index, and it's worse in like every other country in the world. America.
What's listed on theirs though is like sand and burritos.
I don't know. All I know is it's not your money. So.
You dickhead.
So.
Shit.
So coming back to why
that's gonna be a real.
So what? Look, the reason why I'm doing it, and kind of how I want to have an impact in the lives of others, is two different ones. So why I'm doing this, it sounds maybe childish. I like puzzles, and to me, financial markets represent a game of infinite dimensionality with infinite variables. You're playing a game, you're essentially playing a game of infinite dimensional chess with an unknown number of pieces against an unknown and constantly changing number of players, to which the rules of the game are not static either. Right? It represents the greatest puzzle and game, at least in my mind, it represents the greatest puzzle and game in the world. Now, the reason why I say I like that game versus, the game of life is because you have a very finite, a very measurable metric of success. How are you winning the game? Are you good at the game? I don't know. Well, you look at your percentage returns, relative to risk or whatever your metric is. So I it's more of I want to build something that works well for the reason of wanting to build something that works well. The other reason is there's the financial side of the coin. So for me, my passions lie in tech and lie in philosophy, right? So in terms of the ways that I wish to contribute eventually.
Continue talking. I'm just getting my vape.
That's fine. So in terms of the way that I wish to contribute to society, the main one is I want to be able to... Well, so first I have to fix my own house and put my own house in order, right? So I need to be able to better understand how people think, how I think. I need to better understand how the mind works. And then eventually, be able to contribute in, some way in writing or teaching, in what is a way to live. Like we talk a lot about like, these dopamine hits from social media and avoidant behavior with addiction and things like that. But for me, it's like, okay, all that's great, but now what do you do to fix that? Right? Like, what does it mean to live a good life? What does it mean to live a fulfilling life? So part of the motivation behind building this model is if I can subsidize my income, with something that I, one, enjoy, which means I'm not exhausted at the end of the day, but subsidize my income with something that's relatively low maintenance that gives me and frees up my time to be able to pursue some of these more meaningful questions. So there's a few reasons and a few motivations behind it.
Go on.
Yeah. So
This fucking thing just died. You see it flashing?
we can take a quick 5-second break if you want. I get a pee.
Okay, yeah, we'll come back in a second. Okay, we're back. Now, you were saying you have some... what your points of the reasons as to why
Why I do stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the big things, and I actually wanted to talk about it while I was here as well on this podcast, is for me, the things. Okay, so like I said, I've gone through a lot. You know, I was bullied quite relentlessly in high school, led to self-esteem and self-worth issues. That then led me to try and experiment with different things, develop different philosophies on life to find out, you know, what makes me as an individual valuable, what's important to me, how do I live a good life, and all these things, right? And so philosophy has really helped me with that quite a lot. And so I've seen the difference that it's made in my life, like astronomical difference. In the last 2 years, my happiness as a baseline is substantially higher, right? My state of being and how do I put this? I stress less, I'm a lot happier. Things just work better. Right?
Your propensity to the struggles of life.
Yeah, my resilience,
Yes.
And so one of the things I want to do is, obviously, you know, I want to go and, solve the puzzle and play the game of financial markets, because it's very fascinating, very fun to me, and it, it's financially exceptionally rewarding, right? There's, you look at, James Simons, right, is a prime example. It's
Who's that?
Jim Simons, one of the richest guys in the world, ran a fund called Renaissance Technologies from 93 to 2013. They generated an annual return of 67% per annum.
Isn't that higher than Warren Buffett?
Yeah. Smokes Warren Buffett. Guys
Why isn't he talked about?
Because I don't think he wants to talk.
Ah, okay.
The first...
Mr. Simons, you know what you're doing.
He knows what he's doing. There's a book on him, The Man Who Solved the Market.
Oh, okay, right. I'll have to look into it.
First quantitative... So that's the area of finance I'm interested in, is quantitative finance, right? So he was the first quantitative... the first major quantitative fund. So people thought he was crazy when he started using mathematical modeling and algorithms to invest. And they were like, you're crazy. We're going to go call up bloody Toyota's CEO and have lunch with them. And that's how we're going to work out what the company is going to do over the next 10 years. And he's like, no, you can do it with data. Lo and behold. But anyway, so there's the puzzle side of that, right? Which is like, and there's all kinds of stuff out there. There's like, there's a fund called 2 Sigma out of the US. And they, at one point, the way they had a competitive edge is they would take satellite images of wells and dams on farms in the Midwest and then use that to work out rainfall for that year and how much of it had been captured by these farms to then make predictions on soybean prices.
And yield, right?
And yield, yeah. So all kinds of and it's like, so that's what I mean when I talk about that infinite dimensionality. I spoke to a guy in my old job, and he used satellite images. So he used, so it's computer vision, which is just image recognition, right? You train an AI to work out what a cat is, what a dog is, or in his case, what a sea container ship is, or a container ship is. And then he'd use that algorithm to pretty much count up the container ships coming in and out of the docks the ports up north, to then work out whether or not FMG was likely to report above or under target and make predictions on that before they report. Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff. So that stuff kind of really fascinates me. I've gone in a complete loop because I just tangented.
That's fine.
So coming back to the point, so there's that side of it. And the other side of it is wanting to free up my time to attempt to further investigate philosophy, right? And so one of the major aspects of philosophy that's changed my life is, so I used to have, after real estate, obviously, I got burned pretty bad. I ended up in a rather large amount of debt. And so that, as a result, developed a lot of financial anxiety. Eventually I just worked really, really hard, saved a lot, and was able to put myself in a comfortable situation. I'm not rich or anything, but I'm comfortable. And there's actually a quote, and it's probably one of my favorite quotes. And I'm definitely going to get the name of who said it wrong. It might have been Epictetus or Socrates, but it's for men in a state of freedom had thatch for shelter, for slavery dwells beneath marble and gold. And so what does that mean, right? You say this quote, and it sounds great, but what does it actually mean? And it's like, well, a lot of the things in life that we think we want and we think we need, we don't. And it actually has the opposite effect. We become a slave to these things. And not just material goods too, to ego, to our image. It's like, okay, let's say you develop public fame, right? You develop a claim and you become a well-respected member of your community. It's great that you have that, but you're now a slave to that image. If you buy a nice car, okay, here's an example. I'm currently, while I'm visiting in Perth, I'm driving my dad's car around. Car costs $1,000. It's a 96 Camry. It's got a cassette player in it, right? It doesn't even have CDs or an aux cable.
Fuck yeah, Camry.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Toyota's good, man.
Am I worried about it getting scratched by somebody in the car park?
No.
You have a $100,000 Audi. Are you worried about that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So has the purchase of that vehicle added or taken away freedom? Has it added or taken away worry? Sure, you feel good as a status item, and maybe you enjoy the thrill of driving a little faster.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And then let's not forget the fact that you now have to work harder to make money to pay for the insurance, the maintenance, and these other expenses that come with these things. And it's like that across the board. I've become a massive fan of minimalism. So I'm quite fortunate. Obviously, in my job I can work remotely, I can move around. So my plan is because I'm studying as well, once I graduate, I'm just going to sell 90% of what I own. Anything that I want to put in a backpack, I will. I got these shoes; they're great. They're hiking shoes. I can now own one pair of shoes, and that's it.
Looks great in a suit too, by the way.
Thanks. You'll never see that again. So to really just kind of move to this minimalist mentality, because I found that the less I have, the happier I am. And the other thing as well is like the reduction in expenses is great. I used to have so much financial anxiety. I don't even worry about money anymore. It's great. And it's not that I'm rich that I don't worry about money. It's just that, good financial management, you cut down your expenses, but it's like, I know that whatever happens, I'm going to be okay. And part of that internal security, right, I think comes from reassessing what is truly valuable in your life. And this comes all back into what it means to live a good life. Is buying Gucci and Prada and all of this, is that truly living a happy life? Now, if you have an abundance of wealth and you want to get some good quality stuff, there is nothing wrong with that at all. However, a lot of people will overexpense. They'll spend more than what they probably should because of their own current financial situation, to buy things that they don't need to impress people they don't like. And this is really sad, right? Because for me, where does that come from? That comes from insecurity. That comes from wanting to be valuable because, you've yet to find what that value is within yourself. We talked about value earlier, and I was talking about, the impact you have on other people. But the real shift that I'm trying to make at the moment, and I'm working towards it, is valuing myself for my character, right? If I end the day and I've told the truth and I've, not been slothful or gluttonous, and I've, been to somewhat a good man, I've not let ego take hold of me, and I've not done things that I regret. Is that not valuable? Is that not enough? At what point do I need you to go, nice bag? nice car, and it's like, and okay, so here's the other thing. I know, what's that Tate guy? Is it Andrew Tate? The bald one, ran a bunch of casinos somewhere. Does a lot of podcasts. He's quite bald head, sunglasses.
He's quite bald head.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Shiny head guy. I think it was Andrew Tate. Anyway,
Okay.
one of the things he talks about is like, our guys do a lot of this stuff for women, right? We do it because, we want to, you impress a girl, right? Guys don't buy. Most guys do not buy nice suits and nice cars because they like nice suits and nice cars. They buy it because other people like nice suits and nice cars, and women like nice suits and nice cars. And so it's I've 180'd on this. 'Cause I used to be like that. I used to have a nice car, nice suit, and I've 180'd on this now because now I look at it and I'm like, well, the opposite's actually better. I love the Camry as an example because it's a litmus test, right? It's like you're immediately going to push away toxic people that are materialistic.
Yeah, well, you don't accept their awareness of your success through materialism.
Yes, but also,
am I right by saying that?
kind of. So it's like this. I've once again detoured from the original discussion. I'm kind of talking about how it impacts my life, but it works quite well because it's like, okay, so let's say I go on a date, right? What I don't want is to end up investing time with someone who's, superficial and materialistic, it's not my vibe. And I don't, when I eventually have kids, I don't want that kind of immature influence on, raising my kids, or our kids. So it's kind of a great way of like, because people who like, okay, let's once again use the example of women. Chicks who like fast cars and Gucci bags and fancy dinners and fancy clothes will never go on a date with a guy that drives a 96 Camry. For the most part. And I love that. It's great. Literally just complete litmus test. But coming back to circling, where it's actually relevant, it is a really sad thing, right? Which is a lot of the behavior that we see, a lot of the, circling back to the dopamine hits, to the addictions, to the avoidant behavior, to procrastination, to materialism. All of these, at least to me, seem to stem from an inability to derive self-worth internally. There's actually a great quote, I can't remember who it was by. It's more about happiness, but it goes, "It is very difficult to find happiness within oneself. However, it is impossible to find it anywhere else."
That's a fucking brilliant quote.
Yeah. And it's the same thing for self-worth, right? Which is people need to change what they value. So there's a few different parts. There's there's a part I went through therapy where we, one of the things that my therapist mentioned, which was brilliant, was like, in life, you got to have these different pillars to support your life. Your hobbies, your friends, your family, your gym or your business, your passions, and these support your identity, right? And they support who you are as a person. And you see those people where all they have is one thing, like their job, and that's who they are as a person, and so they cling to it really tightly, and that obviously has a detrimental effect eventually anyway. Like the one thing they want so badly they lose. But it's like if all you are is your job, and that's the thing you care about more than anything in this one, and that defines who you are, and you don't have a balanced life, what happens if you lose your job?
In turn, you lose yourself.
Right. So that's what happened to me after real estate, right? Because when I was in real estate, my job was like,
Well, that was the sales factor if they kept selling us on,
yeah, you buy into it. And so it's like, okay, so that's one part of it, right? Which is that you got to have these different things that balance your identity. The problem I have with that still, though, is that like you're picking tangible and external factors, right? You're picking things that are either physical, like, okay, there's a guitar sitting there in the corner. So let's just say part of your identity is that you play guitar. What happens if your hands are crushed in an accident?
Guess who's not playing guitar anymore?
Right, but does that change your identity? Does that change who you are as a human being? Your personality? Because it shouldn't.
Yeah. You kind of identify as a fucking pancake.
That's horrible. But yeah, but you know what I mean? Like I
understand what you're saying. Yeah.
You've tied it to you've tied your identity to something that can be taken away from you.
Once again, it's associative.
Yeah. Yes. Bang. Correct word. There we go. So my thing is like, my big push is like, okay, don't tie your character to these things. So I no longer try to I don't identify with my studies. I don't identify with my work. I don't identify with even my hobbies.
So not only are you living a more minimalist lifestyle through your materialistic morale, but you're also doing it through what you're associating your character to be as well.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the word right there. And that's what I identify with. My identity and who I define myself as a person isn't the things that I do. It is not the things that I have. It's not the things that I'm capable of. It is the decisions that I make.
This is what we were talking about before, is the forks in the road.
But yeah, exactly. So maybe repeat your analogy.
Yeah, so the thought that I had on the discussion on the phone before we started the podcast, to see whether or not you should go to Macca's or not. You shouldn't have, by the way.
Lesson learned.
It's a terrible mistake.
Maybe.
Maybe, right. So we're presented with forks in the road consistently through our lives in the basis of decisions, whether it be positive or negative towards our life. Now, at the end of each of those roads is death. It depends on the decisions that you make, whether or not you lead a short road through bad decisions leading to a quicker demise than a more fruitful lifestyle going down the road of good decisions. Yes.
Yeah. And so I just had a bit of a tangent thought there.
Go.
You want to really something that'll mess you up. There's a concept. So there's a concept in Stoic philosophy, which is memento mori, right? It means remember death. Remember that you will die. And so, how this, translates into something that's actionable is like, okay, you could die tomorrow. So if you're fighting with somebody, make up. If you love someone, tell them you love them. Don't take these things for granted. Don't take time for granted because you assume that you're always going to have it. One of us could die today on the way to your lunch, or me on the way home. These things are possible.
I love you, bro.
I love you too. So, there's this I've lost my train of thought. We were talking about the remember death concept.
Yes.
That was it. And the other one is
in the road tangent.
Yeah. So the other one is, talked about a short versus a long life. And I would say this, what's the difference?
Hit me.
Is there? What is the difference between living 99 years versus 98?
Not a lot.
98 versus 88?
Still not a lot.
98 versus 78?
Not a lot.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't think what matters, and this is where, once again, I think this train of thought is quite helpful as well, is it doesn't really matter so much how long you live. If I die today, the question is, did I live today with character and integrity? Right? Are the decisions that I'm making, have I become a good person upon the time of my death? And we can choose to be a good person today. We can choose to have integrity today. You could have done the worst thing yesterday, imaginable. You could have committed the most horrific tragedies. It's up to you to decide who you want to be today. That's the beautiful thing about using character as a litmus test for your identity and for your own value, right? Is money cannot be changed tomorrow. I can't be a millionaire tomorrow. Sorry, but that's just not happening. And if I try to be, chances are I'll end up with some scam or end up losing all money. I can't have the sexy six pack tomorrow. That's going to take time and discipline. But what I can have tomorrow, even today, and from this moment forward, is integrity, is character. I can, obviously you got to work out what your virtues are first, right? Like for me, I really like the Stoic virtues, which is wisdom. So constantly educating myself. Temperance, which is temperance is like what's the other word for it? It's discipline almost, right? So temperance is like not constantly giving in to like hedonic behavior and like not just like drinking lots and doing like drugs and partying and watching TV and playing games and, you know, all these things that give us our little hit of dopamine, right? It's being able to be disciplined. So wisdom, temperance, courage, which is just, you know, doing things even though they may scare you. And then justice, which is probably actually what used to be the one that I didn't understand too much, and now it's actually kind of my favorite, which is just doing the right thing. We know what the right thing is. Most of the time, you know what the right thing is. And so it's like, if that's your values, right? At least for me, it is at the moment, and that could change. You know, I still wish to learn more about philosophy and deepen my understanding. But if these are the things that we value, then you can choose to be that now. And if you choose to be that now, and that's how you choose to value yourself, which you can make that choice, then however long you live, I don't think matters. And I think that any time that you're living that life on this earth is a gift, and a gift to the people around you. And so this ties back into your value to other people is perceived on the value you add to them. Well, if you live with integrity and character, you will accidentally add value to people's lives. It happens. You know, if you do the right thing by somebody. Okay, here's a great one. I have a friend of mine who, you know, with all due respect to this individual, probably, you know, on a lot of superficial metrics, you know, they're not wealthy, they're not super in shape, they're not, you know, they're not the wisest person, but they're a good person. And they're one of my best friends because, for no other reason, they're a good person and I trust them. I would trust them with my life. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because then what value do they add to my life? Well, they give me someone I can trust. And so that's the value that person adds to other people's lives by living with integrity and character. And so I think, and this is where I really, like, this is a message I want to get across, right? Which is, you know, and I need to better formulate it. And then eventually, you know, once I've better formulated my understanding of it and applications and how to properly enact that change for people or help them enact that change within themselves, you know, eventually I'll then look for a platform. But yeah, I think a lot of our problems go away in society when we begin to change how we measure ourselves, right? Because what gets measured gets done. And when we begin to change how we guide our decision making, I think that solves a lot.
I think also as well, taking virtues for face value is a very destructive thing, unless, like, I'm talking from just an everyday person, right? If you say, hey, my virtues are this, this, and this, and don't look into what is the nature of that virtue, right? And like look into like a philosophy, if it's rooted in philosophy, even like take temperance for, well, let's go justice. Justice, you might have a sense of, like, I used to have a sense of, I'm a stoner. I love weed. This is like one of my virtues. I'm always going to be a stoner.
Yep.
But then when I stopped and I did some looking into it, it was an external force that was kind of like pushing me to be like that. And I realized it wasn't the weed or like the marijuana or the effect of it. It was the empathy that came with it. The sense of calming the nerves so I can see clear to the person that's sitting in front of me, how they're feeling, how I can take in who they are, what their being is, and really like associate a sense of, you know, like you said, a trust within that person or through that person. Interesting thought, Sam. It was a very interesting thought.
Well, so it's very interesting what you say as well, because I know we had a discussion earlier about active listening, right? And how 90% of people will, while having a discussion, simply think about what they're going to say next. And that comes from insecurity and them being concerned about how they're going to be, viewed by other people, right? How they're represented. Recognized, yeah, right. Yeah, here we go. And so it's interesting what you just said, because there's two concepts here. One's that's probably a prime example of avoidant behavior to cope with anxiety. But the other thing is that when the anxiety goes away and you're not so worried about what's going on in your own head, it's very interesting that your true colors was that of empathy, which is interesting, not surprising, because I know you. I think you're a very empathetic and kind person. But that's really interesting, right? It's like when you stop worrying about all the things that you don't need to worry about, what is it you care about? It's like, well, it's about listening to the other person. It's about trying to understand the other person. It's like, okay, well, how do we get there without smoking weed? Well, we just got to try and deal with that anxiety, right? Now, granted, easier said than done. It's an interesting notion, right?
Yes, it is. And every point in our life, we can discern ourselves from certain things that we do. Is that the right word? Discern?
Yeah, discern would be right. It's that everything you do is a vote for your character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And when you pull away from the things that you find yourself in destructive mode doing, and really taking the time to view yourself, make a tolerant decision on saying, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to live with virtue, value for my character. You're taking that fork in the road, great decision, good decision, to say, hey, we're doing the right thing by others, by myself more than anything though. And when we do that, there's a lot of value that can be expressed and seen by one's individual.
I very much agree, right? And I think, yeah, it does cycle back to those small decisions that you make, that living with virtue and value, and then how you express that. It's an interesting puzzle. Like I say, I like puzzles.
Yeah, you're fucking good at them.
Well, hopefully. Well, if I can solve this one, hopefully I can do a lot of good. But
Sam, you're doing wonders, man. And like from the time that I've known you to now, you've just grown and grown and grown.
Thank you.
And
likewise.
Yeah, well, I think we were running buddies in real estate, and we'll continue to be best friends.
How many years was that now?
It was 2015 we started.
Well, apparently I knew you when I was in school. So.
Yeah, apparently I had a crush on my first girlfriend or some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, that's funny. Yeah. Dude, this has been a fantastic podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Wow. Like, for anybody interested in Sam's algorithm, how can they contact you?
I mean, the algorithm's not publicly.
Yeah, but anybody that wants to get involved.
Yeah, sure. Look, if anybody wants like advice on just algorithmic trading or development, or anyone in tech, machine learning, AI, or just wants to know more about philosophy, I don't know, just reach out to me. I'm on Facebook. I'll be on Jacob's friends list as Sam Macintyre. My Instagram is _Aussie, OZZY_abroad. So you can just reach out to me on Instagram and
you'll
say,
be in Sweden next year.
So because I'm still studying, I went back to university doing a bachelor's of data science. I will potentially be doing a semester abroad in Sweden starting next year. I've got to get approved still, so there's a few steps that I have to go through because the units that I want to do for my degree are the master's levels units, because the way that Sweden's education system works is a little bit different. So they have to kind of get a little tick to say, yeah, okay, you're not going to be too out of your depth.
Yeah, well, just keep on it, man. There's a reason as to why you're doing what you're doing, and you're going to be you've already had great success with what you've already done, and I hope it continues.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Roadshow. You know the drill. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast. That is all I ask for payment. We do this for free, obviously. I have been Jacob Rhodes.
And I'm, what's my legacy? McDonald's, something like that? I'm Sam Mac. Nice to meet you guys.
Have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Take me home, I wanna know if you're down.